Okay, welcome back to part cinco. That is part 5 in Spanish. This will be the last one I'm gonna do. I'll let you guys work on the next one on your own. We'll come to class and work on it in class. Um, but let's go ahead and let's do the same thing we did in the last couple videos. Let's calculate f prime of x, and remember f prime of x is equal to the limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. Okay, so we're going to use this. So we have our function f of x. This is a radical function. Okay, so I have f of x plus h, which is going to give me the square root of x plus h minus 1. Okay, so not much to manipulate here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's calculate our derivative f prime of x. And so that's going to give us the limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h. I'm going to plug my square root function in here. Square root of x plus h minus 1 minus the square root of x minus 1 all over h. Okay? Now, again, you are looking at me. You are frustrated. You are sweaty and tired and discouraged. I'm not going to leave. These problems aren't going to leave. So get used to them, okay? So when I have a square root function, okay, I want to manipulate this to a point to where I get rid of h in my denominator, okay? And that's easier said than done, okay? But let's go ahead and let's do what we, if we have, do what we can do given square roots in our numerator. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by the conjugate of our numerator. I'm going to multiply by the square root of x plus h minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1 all over that in my denominator, the square root of x plus h minus 1, and then plus the square root of x minus 1. Okay, so it's a minus 1. Looks terrible. Let me fix that so it looks better. All right, minus 1. Okay. All right, so now when I multiply my numerators, remember that these are quantities. All right, this is a quantity, and this is a quantity, and this is the difference of squares. Okay, so I'm going to get this. I'm going to get the limit as h approaches 0 of this quantity. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and write that. I'm going to write this quantity, the square root of x plus h minus 1, that quantity squared, minus the quantity, the square root of x minus 1, that quantity squared, all divided by h times the main quantity, the square root of x plus h minus 1, plus the square root of x minus 1. Okay, so what happens here, and this is why we have to do this, the reason why I multiply by the conjugate is because it gets rid of my square roots in my numerator. Okay, so I'm going to get the limit as h approaches 0 of, and when I square a square root, I just get what's on the inside, so I get x plus h minus 1. But then up here, I still got to distribute my negative. I'm still subtracting this quantity of x minus 1. Okay, it's important that we do that, because if we don't do that, this is where you're going to make a mistake, and that's not going to be right. Okay, so and then my denominator is h times the square root of x plus h minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. All right, so now let's clean up our numerator over here, and we end up getting the limit as h approaches 0 of x plus h minus, hold on, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Oh, never mind, sorry. Limit as h approaches 0. Let's go ahead and distribute our negative here, so we get x plus h minus 1 minus an x, see, and then minus a negative 1, which is really just plus 1. Okay, all over our denominator, h times the quantity, the square root of x plus h minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. All right, so then I get x minus x, so this cancels out because it adds to 0. Okay, and then I get -1 plus 1. Those cancel out because they add to 0. All right, and check out what we're left with. Okay, our numerator, the limit as h approaches 0 of h divided by h times the quantity, the square root of x plus h minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. Okay, then look at what our h's do. Our h's divide out. We get rid of them. Okay, and so then my next step is going to be the limit as h approaches 0. H approaches 0 of 1 over the square root of x plus h minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. Okay, and so now at this step, because if I can plug in 0 for h, okay, all these other steps I couldn't, it would make my denominator indeterminate. So I'm going to plug in 0, and so I get 1 over the square root of x plus 0 minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. Okay, and so then I'm getting this. Okay, I get 1 over x plus 0 minus 1, that's just the square root of x minus 1 plus the square root of x minus 1. And I have 2 of these, so I end up getting this. I end up getting 1 over 2 times the square root of x minus 1. Okay, and this, folks, is my derivative f prime of x. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's go up to up here. All right, and I'm going to write out my derivative. Okay, I know that f prime of x is equal to, what was that? 1 over 2 square root of x minus 1. Let me just double check that. Yep. Okay, so that's our derivative. Okay, now I've got this point here. I've got x is 2 and y is 1, so I've got x equals 2. Y is equal to 1. Now the question is, what's the slope at this point? What's the slope of my tangent line? So for me to figure that out, okay, the slope of my tangent line, so slope of my tangent line is equal to plugging in 2 into my derivative, so f prime of 2. So f prime of 2, I'm going to plug that in. I get 1 over 2 times the square root of 2 minus 1. So that gives me 1 over 2 times the square root of 1. So the square root of 1 is just 1, so I just get 1 over 2 times 1, so I just get 1/2. Okay, so the slope of my tangent line is 1/2. All right, so I'm going to use this information, help me out. And so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do y minus 1 is equal to 1/2 times x minus 2. Okay, now this isn't too terrible. The fractions are your friend. Okay, they're not going to lie to you like other people. But this one isn't too bad. It's just 1/2. Things will divide out. It's not going to be too hairy. So we get 1/2 times x. We get 1/2 x. 1/2 times -2 really just gives me -1. Okay? And then I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Oh, look, this isn't too bad. So I get y is equal to just 1/2 x. Okay? And this is the equation of my tangent line. So let's go to our calculator. And I've already put in the function square root of x minus 1, so go ahead and do that. And there it is. Okay, here it is. And we want to find what's happening to point 2, 1. Okay, so let's go to y equals, and I'm going to type in 1/2 x. So I'm just going to do 0.5 x, and we're going to see what happens. And I don't know about you, but this is pretty awesome. Look at that. I mean, that is just legit, folks. So, moral of the story, guys, I'm not doing anything different, okay? I'm still just using this to calculate my derivative. The only problem is that we've got different kinds of functions. We have to manipulate them in order to divide out a 0. Every time we do this, we need to divide out a 0, or divide out the h. And so the process doesn't change. It's just that the functions change. Okay, so don't be too bent out of shape about this. Yeah, it's a lot of algebra, it's a lot of work, but you know what? It'll pay off in the end, and I guarantee that. So this is the last I've got for 3.1 notes. I appreciate you guys watching this. I know it was a lot of information. We're going to spend a good couple days on this, but go ahead and get started on your homework, get started on that last problem, and we will see you later.